Well, now here is a conversation I've been looking forward to with Mr. Tom Beal. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm excited for our paths all across these miles here. I am in Florida, you're in Australia, and let's have a fun conversation today.
Indeed, let's do that. Now, Tom Beal is an easy name to remember, and you made an impression on me that's going to be hard to forget, and I'll tell you why. Because it was only a few days or weeks ago, I didn't know who Tom Beal was. I didn't know that you even existed. Likewise, in return with me. Mm-hmm. But there I was on Facebook, and I saw somebody's post, and I'm flicking through the comments, and that's when I saw a comment that you wrote, and I thought, wow, this guy is a thinking man. And then I clicked through to your profile and flicked down through your feed, and what I noticed was mostly posts that are uplifting and encouraging, and which reminded me of what author Wallace D. Wattles wrote about over 100 years ago in The Science of Getting Rich, about being the expanding person, the expanding man, someone who expands the life of other people. And so I had to reach out to you and ask for you to come onto the show, which is what we're now doing, and I'm glad that you're here. And so people have got, the people who are about to listen to what you say, Tom, and watch you on YouTube, are going to see in the show notes a bit about your background, and that's why we haven't gone into a lengthy introduction. But there's something I want to kick this off with. And I see online you're described as a case study in resilience and overcoming adversity. Why would somebody describe you as that?
Wow, that's a great description. And in reflecting upon my life, it's a very good summarization. I was born into this world by teenage parents, a 17-year-old mother and 19-year-old father in 1972. And I found out later in my life that there were deep, heavy, intense conversations prior to my birth about not even allowing me to be born. Think about it, 17-year-old, 19-year-old, pregnant, baby on the way, and either grandparents not too thrilled with, at the time in America, that was recently legalized abortion. So it was a very heavy topic. And for some reason, my parents, who were just kids themselves, persevered and fought to have me born, right? So to have even my birth occur. Now, when I grew up, I'm a child to children, right? So I grew up around much chaos, much adversity, and we weren't born in a silver spoon environment from either family. They were hardworking families, but paycheck to paycheck, no elaborate lifestyle. But what was the foundation in the families, both of them, with the ups and downs, was love, right? And was this sense of knowing as a child, whatever I put my mind to, I can achieve, even with the massive chaos. So just to give the audience who, just like you, Mike, hadn't heard of me just a few minutes ago, you a few days ago, a week ago or so. So I was born to teenagers, raised around 4 divorces and 6 marriages as a child. So in and out of households, the new stepson, and now I'm loved and now I'm kicked out and shunned over and over, repetitive pattern. I went to 9 different schools by 8th grade. And I'm not saying this to stack up that I had the most adversity of anybody. That's far from the case. It's just what the adversity was that I grew up. I'm of the belief that we all, regardless of where we were born into a silver spoon, that still comes with its own separate set of challenges, or my story and stories that are way, way worse than mine. So I'm not saying woe is me in any way, shape, or form, just that's what I experienced. And through all of that, the 4 divorces and 6 marriages, going to 9 different schools by 8th grade, I learned a lot of lessons being in and out of many families. And I guess in retrospect, it all unfolded perfectly for me to become who I am today. And I'm very thankful and wouldn't change a thing about how it unfolded. Because for me, I had a perspective. I didn't just go into one family and have 2 sets of grandparents. I went into so many different families and saw so many different ways of being, where a glass of water would spill and one person, it's World War III. And now tables are getting flipped and things are getting thrown and you're getting beat, to same scenario where someone laughs like, oh, that's no big deal here, just wipe it up, right? So I saw as a youngster that, wow, the same circumstance can occur and people deal with those circumstances differently. And what that gave me, little did I know at the time, was a whole bunch of different father and mother figures to say, whoa, I love that quality and I definitely don't like that quality. So I would love to have more of that and less of this. So I grew up around, from those households and individuals that influenced my childhood, a lot of stuff, between abuse, alcoholism, drug abuse, neglect. It was just a wide variety of circumstances that we put labels on. And I can see, looking back, how even some of my coaches in wrestling and other things. Wrestling was my big sport in high school and whatnot. I remember walking in and having the coaches talking about how concerned they were about me and my stepbrothers. And I, as a youngster, took pride in like, well, no, everything's fine, defending what they were obviously concerned about. And in retrospect, can see how concerned I would be about seeing what was happening in those families. So it was a real wild upbringing. Yet I think that gave me the perspective to see the world through a whole different set of eyes that many people thankfully didn't have to go through. But now I have much empathy for being able to understand. My belief is, you heard my story real quickly. I'm of the belief that I'm either just coming out of a serious issue or challenge, meaning health, relationships, or finances. I'm in a serious health, relationship, finance challenge right now, or there's one right around the corner waiting for me. And that's not just me. That's every person on this planet. We're either in the midst of something right now, we're either just coming out of it, or there's one right around the corner. And I've labeled that as chaos. And I feel chaos is something that is always there. And it's just as I've emotionally matured over my 50 years at this particular point, we're having this conversation. And by the way, I was late to the game of emotionally maturing. I had success through all that chaos. I was able to reach high levels of success. I was a top wrestler. I was a national bicycle freestyle champion. I became the #1 honor man out of United States Marine Corps boot camp. I became promoted 3 times meritoriously within 4 years of active duty service in the Marine Corps. Then I got out and became #1 in 5 separate sales organizations. And then I kept hitting the ceiling. So I figured out, let me just give this entrepreneurial thing a go. My cockiness showed up with me skidding my nose on the pavement for several years, wondering why did I have all this success as sales, and now I'm having such difficulty in this entrepreneurial journey. Yet finally was able to put some things together and piece together some success strategies that led me to succeeding in all those previous endeavors, to then succeeding in the entrepreneurial world, and have been fortunate for myself and helping others to produce multiple tens of millions of dollars in results and provide myself and many that I've worked with, turning many dreams into reality. And that's kind of what I do now, is like, I'm nicknamed the simplifier. How can I help? And I've been fortunate to work with many of my mentors. So I grew up reading books. Actually, I grew up, my mom, here's the funny part. And it's funny because I forget some of this stuff. It's funny, these interviews bring out. So my mom, she was 17 when I was born, when I'm like 8 years old, she's 25 years old, 24 years old. So as a youngster, I'm going with my mom to Avon meetings, Mary Kay meetings, Lifetime Pots and Pans meetings, Electrolux meetings. And for those who know those names, those were MLM type training. So I'm in the back playing with my cars while my mom's at the trainings. And little did I know, I'm learning from Mary Kay Ash, right? The founder of Mary Kay, very successful, one of the most successful women of all time. And here I am in the back, and people say, well, you're playing with your cars. I am, but think of this. How many songs can you sing along to that you didn't sit down and study, but you just heard them over and over again, and it resonated with you just from the repetition? So I'm in all those classes that my mom was attending, playing with toys in the back, yet we'd be out on, for instance, Electrolux demonstration where they dump some sand, dump some stuff on the carpet, and my mom's doing these steps and the thing wasn't working. Here I am at like 8 years old telling her, Mom, you forgot to do this step. Like, I knew the steps at a young age. So my mom, being that entrepreneurial youngster trying to make ends meet, planted seeds into my brain that little did I know I was learning in a similar fashion that we learn songs, just through repetition, not paying attention, but it was seeping in. And I was learning how to conduct sales processes and how to sell Electrolux, sell Lifetime Pots and Pans, sell Mary Kay makeup products, sell Avon makeup products, through just being there with my mother, right? And that led me to being someone who, thanks to her guidance, got into some personal development books. And I started reading Zig Ziglar at a younger age, and Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy, and a huge collection of Nightingale-Conant things. And man, I remember hearing them say, maybe one day when we cross paths, I hope you're able to tell me how this training that you're listening to impacted you. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be great to meet Zig Ziglar? Wouldn't it be great to meet Tony Robbins? Wouldn't it be great to meet Brian Tracy? And not only have I met most all of my heroes, but I've worked on numerous very successful projects with many of them as well. I've been fortunate. I spent much time with Zig in his later years before he passed away in Dallas. I've been to Fiji, to Tony Robbins' private island in Fiji. I've been in San Diego with Brian Tracy. I've met Jay Abraham. I've met Joe Polish, Joe Vitale, like pretty much everybody, like who I used to study from the Nightingale-Conant libraries are now in my cell phone with their cell phones. And it's not like and we actually look forward to talking. Like, if I was just texting Joe on his birthday, Joe Vitale, a little while ago. It's like, so it's been a wild journey. So that summary that you shared walked me through memory lane that shows through much adversity, with the perseverance, with the determination, with the commitment to I guess Tony Robbins is CANI, constant and never ending improvement. It's turned many of my dreams into reality. And I remember feeling the Zig Ziglar, like his trainings. He trained me when I touched into his books and audios and videos back in the late 80s, early 90s. Like, wow, my past doesn't have to be my future. I can set goals and I can turn those goals into reality. I said, whoa, what if that's possible? I grew up living in so many different places, living in trailers and living in, I moved so much into poverty areas. And I thought that just was the way it had to be. And I listened to Zig, and he planted that possibility of your past doesn't determine what your future is going to be. And I was like, whoa. And that led to a whole bunch of things that unfolded into far surpassing anything I thought I'd ever be able to accomplish as a youngster prior to tapping into that type of stuff.
So much background there, Tom. Thanks for giving us a detailed background to your early life, right from the beginning, which almost, as you mentioned, almost didn't even happen. You wouldn't be here if your young parents had have pursued what they were being encouraged to do. Mm-hmm. Actually, a couple of things came to mind, Tom, as I was listening. Well, first of all, you mentioned some names there, and I know Joe Vitale likes to say everyone's going through something, everybody goes through something or is going through something, which ties back into what you were saying about what you said earlier. And what came to mind was Stoic philosophy. And do you have a philosophy that you found that you really pin your own philosophy to?
Yes. So, and this goes back to Zig Ziglar as well. Zig used to sign off his writings at "See you at the top" and then "See you over the top." And that was like, as a youngster, I was like, man, that's so cool. Like, what would be something that I could sign off my letters with, and what could be my signature? And so I came up with something a long time ago, and it was called "Make Today Great." So instead of, sincerely or over the top, see you over the top, see you at the top, mine many, many moons ago became "Make Today Great." And everything I signed, and videos that I would end and audios I would end, and I would say, "Make today great." And that became not just a statement, not just my signature, but I created a philosophy around that. What is it going to take to fulfill that? Like today, I recognized as my life unfolded, and even with success, what Joe Vitale and what I shared and what you mentioned, Mike, is true. Success doesn't negate anybody from difficulties or challenges. As a matter of fact, there's that rap song, "More Money, More Problems." I've witnessed that to be very, the math works out on that as well. Larger sets of problems. The larger problems you can handle, the more you grow. But one of the things that I realized was I lost my mother at 52 years old to cancer, diagnosed and gone very quickly. That was in 2007. And in 2009, my father was diagnosed and gone of cancer at 56 years old. And yes, I'd lost friends and family, around there, prior and since, but those were two big wake up calls for me, because as you just heard, they were only 17 and 19 years older than me. I mean, they weren't old. 52 and 56, diagnosed and gone. I was on vacation in Thailand in 2007, and my sister said, "Hey, mom's not doing well. You might want to come home." I was like, "Mom's fine." Mom was a perseverant. She set her mind to something. I said, she's fine. She'll be great. And my sister was at the time in school for physical therapy. She's like, "No, I looked at her charts and she's not fine. And she's only got days to live." And so I cut the trip short to come back and spend time with her. And I did spend time with her by her bedside, as we all did. And, there's the sayings from the books that many of us have studied, Think and Grow Rich, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. That Henry Ford quote. My mom told me, she said, "Tom, I know without a doubt the cancer that I'm dying from was my hatred for my last ex-husband." Like she carried that hate. And she said this weird cancer that was in her digestive area, intestines. She said, "I know without doctors don't have to tell me. I know it's from me holding so much hate for my ex-husband." Right. And she was that. And my father, I have a whole book that I wrote titled "I'm going to beat this cancer." And that was his statement to me when he was diagnosed. And remember, my mom had just passed a couple of years. And even though they had married and divorced each other twice as youngsters, so they gave it a go, but they weren't the friendliest, amicable, but they still had admiration and love for each other their whole lives. But when he had his cancer diagnosis, he's like, "I'm going to beat this." And finally I had a conversation with him near the end. I said, "Dad, I know you told me you're going to beat this, but we had no idea that it was this advanced." I said, "So, I know you're a man of your word, but neither of us knew how advanced this was. So I'm not holding you to that. You can go home whenever you want." And he passed very quickly. Like I went in with him on the doctor on Friday. The doctor said he'd be home by Sunday. and he was dead by Sunday. And he actually died the day after Jim Rohn died. I was listening to Jim Rohn back and forth to the hospital, and Jim died December 5th, 2009, and my dad died December 6th, 2009. And Jim was kind of a other father figure in my life, as far as listening and learning from him over the years as well. And fortunately getting to meet him prior to him passing as well. But make today great philosophy. So how can you make today great? I've narrowed it down to 3 areas that I focus on. Out of all the things in life, things come in 3s. So our thoughts, our words, our actions determine where we are right now and where we're going to be in the near future. And so are we focusing our thoughts, our words, on actions to where we want to be, or on problems and challenges and difficulties? Focus as much as possible in the 24 hours each of us have in a day on where am I going with my health, my relationships, my finances, my thoughts, my words, my actions, and you relate it to the 3 main areas, which are your health, your relationships, and your finances. So how you control your thoughts, your words, and your actions for your health, for your relationships, for your finances will get you from where you are to where you want to be. So my goal each day is, all right, it's another gift. I woke up today. Sometimes I and many others of us in this human endeavor forget that we're not guaranteed a finish of today. We woke up, but we, for some reason, think we're guaranteed a day to finish, and we're guaranteed a tomorrow, and guaranteed a next week or next month or next year or next decade, right? My hope is to be around for several more decades. But the reality that I've witnessed in my life is I can't live a second shorter or a second longer than what I'm going to live. And I don't know when that day is, but I'm going to give my all each and every day. Hence, when you reached out, okay, great. Seek and you shall find. You want this for whatever reason. This is a divine appointment. Let's see where this leads. How can this impact other people's lives? So every day, what am I doing to make today great? Well, for me, I have a morning routine, my hour of power. I wake up and I grab some water. I put some ear pods in, and I put a nice audible or training in, and I go on an hour-long walk. It's a half hour to the beach and a half hour back. It's a 4-mile round trip, and I'm getting my body in motion right away. So my day, I've made it great every day just with that first hour of the morning. And even when I'm traveling, wherever I am, just get up, walk a half hour in one direction, set an alarm, turn around, walk back. The hour of power is key. And then I identify, what are the appointments that I have for today? Who do I need to be for this particular appointment? Like, what's the desired outcome for this appointment? For this one here, it's to share some stories, have a conversation. We didn't discuss where it was going to go. We're just seeing where it goes. But to be present, right? To have my mind here, being present, to deliver the stories, the insights that can impact the people who cross paths with this. Just like my goal, when I first heard Zig, I was like, man, wouldn't it be great one day if I could share some insights or stories that could help people the way Zig helped me? Had no idea how that was going to be possible, but that's transformed into the conversation we're having here. I've been fortunate to travel the world and impact people's lives. So the Make Today Great philosophy is the philosophy, and there's many steps to it, but think about that. Narrow it down to the simple stuffs. I want to make today great. Okay. The things that I found I'm in control of are my thoughts, my words, my actions. And the 3 main areas of my life are my health, my relationships, my finances. So where am I in my health, relationships, and finances, and where do I want to be? What can I do? What's the one thing I can do to make it a little bit better in each of those areas today? Hence, make today great.
Wonderful, Tom. Thank you. And you mentioned just there towards the tail end, think about it. And what came to my mind instantly while listening to you was Earl Nightingale quoting the problem with people today, or men today, is they don't think, and then following it up by, if most people said what they were thinking, they'd be speechless, which you have to think about that to really get the message. Tom, there's something else that I see about you when I do a little bit of searching online, and that is your website, which is youarenotdeadyet.com. And that made me think again of Stoic, some Stoic philosophy, and others who quote memento mori, remember you will die, which ties in exactly with what you've just been describing about when we wake up in the morning, we're not guaranteed that this day will end for us the way we want it to do. And I have a saying myself, and that is, I know I'm going to die one day. I just don't want to be there when it happens, but that's my own philosophy. Okay, so why you are not dead yet? Where does that come from for you, and how does that help the people that you're helping? Because you're a mentor to mentors. You coaches on helping other people. So you are not dead yet. Give us the background.
Right. So I've put off writing a book for many, many years. And I've been fortunate to put out products and courses and live events and things of that nature, but never written a book because I really couldn't encapsulate everything that we're talking about here. Like, it could be a whole bunch of different books, but it's hard to encapsulate it briefly in a book that would give people a message that I feel is super important for them to get. So I actually went to one of my long-term friends' beach cottage in South Carolina, Jeffrey Gitomer, New York Times bestselling sales author of the Sales Bible and a whole bunch. So I actually invested. He's a friend, and I introduced him to Jim Kelly when I was president of a company with the Hall of Fame quarterback, Buffalo Bills, Jim Kelly. I introduced him to Jeffrey Gitomer back in 2005. They actually have a finished book and videos and all this stuff, but some things happen, and it's literally in the vault. It has been sitting done since 2005. So I have a long-term friendship with Jeffrey Gitomer. But I said, Jeffrey, I don't even want to ask for this. I want to invest and come visit with you to help me narrow down how can I encapsulate the message that is my life to help others, right? So we sat in his cottage in South Carolina in September of last year, 2022, or was it? No, it was actually September 2021. And so it's been a year and 3 months or so since then. And we came up with, this title, You Are Not Dead Yet. And next to dead, living up to your potential yet. And I can give credit to Jeffrey Gitomer for helping me fine tune this message. Like it actually was mine. I got it like not in day one, not day two, the night of day two at 4 a.m. I got up and I just grabbed a piece of paper and I just wrote it down. And it was from the conversations that we were having. And we had other titles that we were throwing around. I can't think of the other titles, but I wrote it down at like 4 something in the morning, sketched it out and sent it over. And by the time he woke up in the morning, he's like, that's it. That's perfect. So from the conversations, it led to the epiphany in the middle of the night of this. And the message, I think, is easy to comprehend right away. Like, you are not dead, ... yet. Right. But you're also not living up to your potential yet. I'm of the belief that I don't care who Jeffrey is or Jim Kelly or even Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. I don't care if they're billionaire status, hundreds of millions, tens of millions, or just have an idea that they want to get rolling and start a business. I'm of the belief myself, and no one has reached their full potential. Yeah. We have so much untapped potential. And this message, I think, encapsulates it. You're not dead yet. You're not living up to your potential yet. So it's not in a morose way. There's no fear associated with it. But the whole point is, how can you live and squeeze it all out, all that you've got to give in this world before you're no longer here? And then we came up with another fun little thing here, because I have a 5-step success magnet system. And Jeff, this was another part of Jeffrey's idea: 5 simple strategies to creating your own happy ending. Right. So we're going to die, but how can we get a happy ending? And then for those who know, there's some jokes about happy endings, right? So it's got some double entendres. And then on the back, it's got another message. And we came up with this, and the title, I think, is very catching and has created a mini movement before it's even been released. And then the back part is pretty important as well. Welcome to the greatest amusement park in the universe, life on Earth as a human. Right. So I had I have a unique situation where my ex-wife and 2 kids live in New York and I live in Florida. Right. So my daughter's 17 and at Penn State University. She graduated a year early out of high school and at Penn State when she should be a senior in high school. She got accepted and is there. She's doing great. My son's at nursing school. He's 20. He'll be 21 next month. When they were younger, I moved down here in February of 2011. And when I moved here, I made a commitment that I would go back every other week from Florida to New York. And we went back. So I went back every other week to invest. It took a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of finances to do that. But I wanted to be there for my kids. And we would go on some adventures. And we went on some adventures to Disney. I went there, picked them up. We flew down Orlando. We went one time up to the park in Ohio. I'm drawing a blank on what that name is. It was a great roller coaster ride. And when we go, we're there. Like, I thought, when we go to the music park, we get there as early as we possibly can. We want to get there before the gate opens. Then before the gate opens, we know which ride are we going to first? And then when that ride's over, what do we ask? Okay, what's next? And we're making the most of it. And then at the end of the day, we're there and the gates are closed and we're the last one exiting. And we fist bump and we say, no one had more fun than us. Like, it would have been impossible for any other family to have more fun than us. We did it. Like, we went for it. And yes, we stopped to eat, but you aren't lounging around and you aren't wasting time. You know, you've got a mission there. And whether it's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or a week, it's over like that. Right. So how can we take that amusement park analogy, insert it into the grander version of life as a human here on Earth, and say, treat this like it's the most amazing amusement park in the universe? And if you had that same tenacity, that same excitement, that same joy, that same commitment to going for it, with the goal of, like, no one went for it like us, right? How can you surround yourself with a team personally and professionally that's on that same path? Like, let's go for it. Let's have the most. Because what does that mean? Like, I have a 2-word summary of what each of our purpose is here on Earth. Joyous creation. we're here to be joyous creators, right? And we're joyously creating while we're at the amusement park. With this amusement park analogy of life, how can you be the fullest, most joyous creator that you're capable of being? And the coolest part about that is each of us have a different way to joyously create. You know, my strengths are other people's weaknesses, and other people's strengths are my weakness, right? So find out what that thing is for you that you absolutely love doing. And if you do it with all that you've got, that's what I feel is truly living. And it's following the philosophy of make today great. It's tapping into the you are not dead philosophy, which, and it's funny I bring this up because I have cards printed out. And the cards are just the front and back of the I don't have any here. They're over there. I'd have to go get them. It's just the front and back, but they're little business cards. And
when was that book published, by the way, Tom?
Well, here's the funny part. It hasn't been published. Like and here's the funny story. The front and back cover has created a little movement in and of itself without the book being released, and doing interviews like this gets into some of the main concepts, the whole you are not dead yet. And, treat this journey we call life as if it's a short trip to the most amazing amusement park in the universe. And just like I said, like whether it's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or a week or more, the trip to amusement park's over like that. Same with our journey. Like it's over before we know. And you don't want to be being escorted out and like, oh man, I didn't get to ride that, or I didn't get to ride that, because you were wasting too much time without being on purpose, intentional, right?
And time always flies when you're having fun. And believe it or not, I want to just make sure, are you right for another 5 or so minutes? Because I've still got, excellent, thank you. I just wanted to check in with you there, Tom. So while you were holding up that book, I'm thinking to myself, how did I miss seeing that online so I could reference it? And I'm thinking, I didn't do my homework properly, but it's not yet published yet, but it's going to be, right? It's a book that's going to be published.
Right. And so the You Are Not Dead Yet movement came from the book and the conversations and me doing some tests on stages all over the world and in virtual manners such as this. And so the youarenotdeadyet.com actually leads to my app. My app is called The Simplifier. And it's a cool app that has huge amounts of value in there. And so the app has kind of substituted the need to even release the book, yet the book is still going to be released. But here's the best part, Mike. As these conversations have unfolded, I've narrowed down a couple of things. Like one, I've recognized humans' attention spans have become very, very small. And what my initial book was going to be, that was done back in September of 2001, when I spent that time with Jeffrey Gitomer, has totally switched to being kind of like my best lessons, right? Like one after the next. Like what are the biggest epiphanies that I've had in my 50 years of incredible journey that also, similar to you, I can tell the books and the people that you've referenced, I too dug into those. Well, Jeffrey Gitomer, first of all, back when I met him on December 31st, 2001 in Charlotte, North Carolina, he told me to listen to the Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, every single day for, and I did that for over a year. Every single day, listen to The Strangest Secret. And he said that was one of the keys to him and his success all the years ago. Him and his people would listen to that every single day. And people like, well, you can almost memorize it at that point. You can, but it settles in and it becomes more of just hearing it to now embodying it and being it. And it's really powerful. Anyhow,
I love it, Tom. I love it. I really do. And that title there really caught my eye, as did the subheading which I saw online. So let's just backtrack, because there's something important I want to ask you. It's about something you mentioned. So Tom Beal, fortunate to have even been born, had an early life that you could describe as being adversity. I mean, that's it in a summary. Lived through it, somehow came through it to be a high achiever, and now is a leader to help others achieve and become their best self, the best version of themselves, and reach more of their potential possible best self as well. But you mentioned something, and you mentioned the name Joe Vitale, and I come back to Joe because I had the pleasure, and I was fortunate enough to have him on the show. And this was not long after his divorce, fairly recent divorce. And you mentioned divorce in your own life as well. So I just want to have the contrast here, Tom, to keep this real, because this is the Comeback Coach podcast. And not everybody who is watching you now, Tom, or listening to you is going to instantly buy into all the positivity. And I know that's all about the American way is positivity, win, 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 rah, rah, rah. And we're less so into that in Australia, but doesn't mean to say we're not into it. But our audience could be anywhere in the world. And right now, Tom, you and I don't know who is watching you, who's listening to you, and what they're going through. So we've heard that you're a high achiever. We heard that you had some adversity in your early life, but you mentioned as almost a throwaway, your own divorce. How did going through that? Now, I'm a divorced man too and remarried. So from my perspective and experience, it ain't no bowl of cherries going through a divorce. So how did your philosophies of success help you get through and come through your own divorce?
Holy cow, Mike, that was the most difficult and challenging thing I'd ever been through. And it was not like a normal, I mean, how deep do I want to go in this? Okay, so I'll get as deep, and I've had these conversations with my daughter and my son, so it's nothing surprising to them. But the reality is, our marriage wasn't a love affair marriage. It was we were broken up, and she came to me and told me she was pregnant. And after my growing up that you just heard, I'm not a proponent of an abortion. So I said, well, that's okay. I'm actually moving she lived in Rochester, New York. I was moving from Rochester down to Charlotte, North Carolina for a new job opportunity. I said, I'll be moving down there, so I'll be able to take care of you and the baby. This new job, fortunately, is going to, be okay, and I'll be able to help out. She said, no, if you don't bring me with you, I'm having an abortion. So the marriage itself was under duress. Like, it was either choose to kill this unborn baby or bring her with me. And I chose to bring her with me. And we dated. She was very attractive, still a very attractive woman. And it was a lustful relationship on my part. Right. But it was also too crazy. Like, I broke up with her many times, and she would just keep showing up and persistent. I found out years later, I was the only person that ever broke up with her, and she had to have me. Right. I'm like, what? I'm like, so my brain fried, like, what? So the only reason you kept showing up and pursuing and driving me nuts was because I was the only person that ever broke up with you, and you decided you had to have me. And so that was the foundation. So this wasn't a fairy tale loving marriage to begin with, as you can hear. And she just drove me nuts, and she continued to drive me nuts. And I made a decision as an 8-year-old child that I would never get divorced. And so here I am getting tortured, and we're actually in counseling, and this is going to get deep, and I'll let you know. And this is how I have empathy for people, and how I flash back in the Johnny Depp type of situation. I was like, that was me. I was Johnny, and everyone's hearing this crazy story, and it's far from the truth, right? So, and not to say I know Johnny's truth, but I knew my truth. And long story short, so I'm committed. I'm not getting divorced, even though I'm getting tortured. And so we're in and oh, by the way, it had to always be my fault. Anytime a counselor would anytime point a direction of anything that she was doing or how she could improve, she wouldn't go back to that particular counselor. So we're in this new counselor, and the woman said, well, she has borderline personality disorder, and you just have to learn to deal with it. And I said, I don't know what borderline personality disorder is, but that doesn't sound bad enough. And she's like, no, that's actually one of the worst. And I said, well, okay, I'll take your word for it, but it's torture. And I said, let me ask you this. If I was beating her up, would you tell her she needs to learn how to take it? And she said, of course not. That's ridiculous. I said, why are you telling me I need to learn to take this emotional and physical abuse? Like, what am I missing? How do I need to be the person that needs to learn how to take it when I don't want to learn how to take it? Like, if this is how it needs to be. So I transitioned from that 8-year-old decision of I will never get divorced. And then I transitioned to now, and then the story went on. I had actually finally decided to leave one time in 2005, and packed up my stuff and made that decision. And it wasn't hard. She convinced me to go one last time. And then that's when our daughter was conceived. So I came back again. So anyhow, God has a funny sense of humor, but it was a torturous journey for me. And I finally transitioned, Mike, to make this decision. And anyone out there going through tough times, like, I finally recognized the decision I made as an 8-year-old wasn't relative and pertinent to where I was in. I said, I need to make a new decision. I was deciding to stay in this relationship for the kids. I said, this is so poisonous. I don't want my kids seeing this as the model for a relationship. If I don't leave, they're going to be in similar relationships when they get older. I'm going to choose to leave for the kids. And that's exactly what I did. And then I stayed near them. And there's books on dealing with borderline personality. There's one of them called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. And that's like, so I'm now near the family, and it was torturous for me because that whole, it's such a torturous thing. When it's my time to have the kids, she's not there. Like it was just, so I need to now leave the whole New York area because I'm right near them and I can't see them. Like and I'm going to court and it's costing me all this money. And it was just a torturous thing. And so ironically, when I moved to Florida, I was able to see them more. but it still was a nightmare. My divorce, Mike, and for anyone else watching this, was a 6-year knockdown, drag out, life-wrenching disaster. And I lived through it, right? And it was not simple. It was like even the simplest things of picking them up or having, it was everything. Her mantra was, how can I make his life more miserable, which in turn made the kids, a pawn, right? And it was a torture and torment for 6 years, which, by the way, was throwing out all the money, like just flushing it down the toilet. That was just good for the lawyers and not good for the kids, her or me. And man, so it was horrendous. It was torturous. Yet it, in retrospect, trained me things that I wouldn't wish on anybody. But it was more of a hellish experience for me than going through the United States Marine Corps boot camp. So Tom, I learned a lot of lessons in the Marine Corps, but those lessons I learned in that situation, whether I wanted to or not, emotionally grew me to be empathetic and not. I am the coach. I deal with people that generally they're telling me stuff they don't even tell their counselors, because I'm of a no judgment. I don't care what you're going through. I get the pain and the suffering, and it's embarrassing. And I even hid it because as a man, I'm not supposed to be like, I'm getting abused. Like, what? That's not a normal situation. Like, so anyhow, I get all these wild situations, and that emotionally matured me at levels I wouldn't wish on anybody, but that was my journey. I used to have the feeling like, well, we must have the worst family in the area. And then as you grow up, you start seeing, holy crap, we're not as bad as those people, right? If we were all throw our problems in a pile, we want our problem back. Is the real
look, I love it, Tom. I love your transparency. I really, really love you for being willing to share that on our show and talk about empathy, because followers of this show and people who know of my background know that I'm a former alcoholic, drug addict, and a suicide survivor. Almost took my own life, so I can totally relate. And I went through feeling very embarrassed about those things now. But then I heard somebody quote, "Take your skeleton out of the closet and make it dance." I can't remember who that's who. I must look it up so I can quote it properly. But anyway, yeah. I've got that skeleton out of the closet now, and I'm really making it dance every single day. As are you, Tom. And so. Look, time, as I say, time always flies when you're having fun. And this time with you has gone so quickly. And I really appreciate the wisdom. You are a fire hose of wisdom based on real lived experience, not just from the books that you've read, but you quote all the popular authors who became your friends and associates. I see in your background that you worked with one of the big internet marketing guys of 10 years ago, Mike Filsaime. In fact, I think you were running his program there 10 years ago, were you not?
Yeah. And we actually we're still doing stuff together. We were on a call earlier today together. So yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Yep. So
because I get Mike Filsaime's emails with his Groove platform, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Tom, so much more that could be talked about with you, discussed with you. So many. So I've got here. Let me just make sure I've got the main things here. I've got my notes here, Tom.
Well, let me jump in real quickly, Mike, and just thank you for sharing your story about alcoholism, drug, suicide survivor, and you stepping up to help others. So one of my other domains and things a long time ago was the ultimate underdog story, right? How to be that underdog, right? So a lot of people hearing that, Mike, would, well, geez, but look how you've turned that. And like you said, you're making that skeleton dance. So I'm honored that our paths have crossed in this manner. And I know that your best is yet to come as well. And geez, and funny enough, going all the way back, I mean, geez, I met Joe Vitale back in 2005, before March of 2005. I met him before The Secret, right? And then we were on a cruise together, and he and his ex-wife Narissa, I'm friends with Narissa as well. So and it's life unfolds, but now it's learn and make your skeleton dance, and just don't have any of that embarrassment. Just, hey, it is what it is. None of us have a clean history. We all have stuff that's occurred, and the more transparent you can be, the more you can own it, the better. But I will share this. One of the stories that I even forget about that ties into You Are Not Dead Yet is my near-death experience. I was driving and in a single car accident, rolled 4 times, ejected from the sunroof, laying in a field. Next thing you know, I see someone laying in the field. I see that it's me. Now I'm pulled up. It's all bright white light. And I'm standing there confused. I see my sisters who were 10 and 12 years younger than me. This happened on 9/11/1998, Friday, September 11th, 1998, around 10 p.m. And I now see my sisters at my funeral, and I see the pain that has and the anguish. I feel that. And someone or something comes up and puts their arm around me, and all that pain and anguish went to being a feeling of just everything's okay. It's all right. And then, even though it's all bright white light, we turn 180 degrees. Now we start walking towards these big doors that are open, bright white lights coming out these doors, and we're walking. And halfway there, I said, stop. This isn't how it's supposed to end. I know you had more for me to accomplish. Send me back. I woke up in intensive care in Strong Memorial Hospital. I'd been helicopter lifted from that field, had a respirator breathing for me, and was told that I may never walk or talk again. And even though I couldn't talk or walk, I just shook my head no. Nope, never for a second did I believe I wouldn't be walking or talking. For a couple years after that, my leg had drop foot. You ever see someone with a leg that's dragging? Yeah. And I'd tap my leg, rub it, and apologize for what happened, but it's over. You're still attached. So do whatever you got to do to fix that. And so now my leg doesn't have a drag, but, and I've since gone out, even last year, March or April of last year, May, maybe, I was out in Vegas wrestling with Russell Brunson at a wrestling tournament. It doesn't matter what's happened to you in the past. Learn from it, step up, and continue moving forward.
Wow, Tom. Just wow, exclamation mark. So where do people go if they want to know more about Tom Beal? Is it youarenotdeadyet.com or is there another, how do they contact you?
You can just go to tombeal.com, TOMBEAL.com. It's got a whole bunch of different places to go to get massive value. I love, like you, Mike, I've done a lot of interviews and I've done a lot of value that's out there. And at youarenotdeadyet.com, you'll find access to my app with a huge amounts of value in there. But yeah, go to tombeal.com. You'll see all the crazy places that touch bases with me.
So those links will be down in the show notes for the audience who are listening to you and watching you now on YouTube, Tom. Well, what I imagined, I imagined it, and it's the reality that I imagined this would be, this conversation with you, Tom. I really have been looking forward to it. That's past tense. Now that we're almost done with this conversation, it's everything and more than I expected it to be. And I'm so grateful for you that you showed up and you gave your time to the audience of the Comeback Coach podcast. You've been so open and transparent about your stories, and we love that. And we can only wish you more and more power and more success, Tom.
Thank you. And I liked your dancing skeleton thing. I will share this with people. You probably heard it before, but turn your mess into your message. Yeah. And Mike, there was a time when Mike wouldn't talk about his stuff. I wouldn't talk about my stuff, but then we both emotionally matured. And like, you know what, as you talk about it, you get more people like, hey, this person gets it. Like that person just explained. I guarantee there's someone out there, Mike, that heard that. Like, that's what I'm going through with my ex or my current situation. Like life has a funny way of doing it. But if you keep it inside, it's going to wear you out. So make your mess your message, and here's to your best being yet to come. I'd love to hear what touched you in our conversation. And Mike, thank you for reaching out to me. I'm so grateful that our paths cross, and looking forward to further conversations.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. And to you, the audience, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening and watching Tom Beal, and also for joining us here on this episode of the Comeback Coach podcast. Until next time, this is Mike Searles signing off.